Welcome to the final hardening lesson of Stage 03, and this one's pure Ubuntu. Unpatched CVEs are still the #1 way servers get owned, and Canonical's answer is a 2-layer model, unattended upgrades handling nightly security patches for free out of the box, and Ubuntu Pro with Livepatch applying kernel fixes without a reboot. By the end, you'll have both layers wired up, know when the paid tier actually pays off, and understand what patch within 24 hours really takes in production. Layer 1 is unattended upgrades, and the good news is it's already on every Ubuntu server install, driven by the apt daily timers we covered back in Lesson 10. Out of the box, it pulls only from the security pocket. That's the safe default Canonical picks for you. Verify it's armed with systemctl list timers, then check 20 auto upgrades to confirm the periodic flags are set to 1. The real knob is allowed origins in 50 unattended upgrades. Leave it on security only for most fleets, uncomment updates if you want everything, and add the ESM line once Pro is attached. Test changes with our dry run, debug before trusting them in prod. Before that auto upgrade actually fires, 2 Ubuntu-specific behaviors will shape what your fleet sees. Phased updates means Canonical drips each package out by percentage. Your host is randomly assigned a phase, and if regressions surface early, the rollout halts before it reaches you. Check where you stand with app policy grep phasing. Only force always include phased updates for a critical CVE, never as routine. Then need restart handles the aftermath. It scans for services still mapped to old libraries and bounces just those, so most upgrades never need a full reboot. Wire automatic reboot into 50 unattended upgrades with a 3 a.m. window and with users false, and audit with the reboot required flag and var run. Need restart handles user space, but the kernel itself still demands a reboot, unless you bring in Livepatch. Ubuntu Pro is Canonical's commercial layer, free for 5 personal machines and licensed for fleets, and it bundles ESM for infra and apps, landscape, USG, and the piece we care about today, Livepatch. Grab a token from ubuntu.com Pro, run sudo pro attach, and the Livepatch service comes up by default. Verify with Pro status, then confirm real hotfixes are landing with Canonical Livepatch status verbose. Fully patched true, patches applied incrementing. Reboot now becomes a quarterly maintenance window, not your CVE response time. The same Pro attach that gave you Livepatch also unlocks ESM, and that's what stretches an LTS from 5 years to 10. For 22.04, that's security patches through April 2032. For 24.04, all the way to 2034, ESM infra covers main, ESM apps covers universe. Together, roughly 30,000 packages stay patched. Verify with app cache policy piped through grep ESM to see the repos, then run sudo pro security status for the fleet-wide CVE summary. The win isn't just longevity, it's that you upgrade the OS on your schedule, not the CVEs. Now, when does free stop being enough? Pro's free tier covers 5 machines per Ubuntu One account, perfect for personal kit and home labs. Past that, you're paying, but the features don't change. Livepatch, ESM, landscape, USG, identical across tiers. For a startup running 10 to 50 production hosts, roughly $25 per host per year pays for itself the first time Livepatch prevents a reboot during business hours. Regulated shops at 50 plus go infra only or advanced for the compliance paper trail. And if your LTS is staring down end of standard support, ESM is almost always cheaper than a forced OS migration. Pricing settled. Now let's talk about what running this at fleet scale actually looks like when a log shell class CVE drops at 2 a.m. Your daily ops loop is 6 queries. Audit patch status across every host from the bastion, find boxes waiting on a reboot, verify Livepatch is checked in everywhere, and keep a manual override path ready when you can't wait for the timer. Then you wire it into observability. Unattended upgrades logs go to journaled, Promtail ships them to Loki, and node exporter surfaces pending upgrades and reboot required as Prometheus metrics. 2 alerts close the loop. Reboot pending 24H catches hosts that patch but never rebooted, and Livepatch unhealthy catches silent enrollment drift. This is your bookmark slide. The muscle memory for Lesson 17. 4 blocks map to the 4 questions you'll ask in an incident. When does unattended upgrades fire and what would it touch? Is Pro actually attached with the right services enabled? Is Livepatch checked in at the kernel level? And does this box need a reboot or just a service restart? Notice need restart with -K. That's your tiebreaker for whether a Livepatch kernel still needs a real boot to clear. Screenshot it, paste it in your runbook, move on. Now here's where policy meets reality. Not every CVE deserves a 2 a.m. page. CVSS plus your exposure model decides the clock. Criticals at 9.0 or higher on internet-facing hosts. Under 24 hours, on-call plus automation. Livepatch for the kernel and a manual app for user space. Highs ride unattended upgrades within a week. Mediums coast on phased rollouts. Lows wait for the next reboot. And any kernel CVE collapses to Livepatch's sub-24-hour window with no reboot at all. Tighter SLAs for anything internet-facing. Write that down in your fleet policy. Policy's clean in theory. Production bites back. 5 gotchas worth tattooing on your forearm. Automatic reboot equals true on a Postgres host is the canonical 3 a.m. page. Disable it on anything stateful and drive reboots manually after failover. Phased rollouts will make an urgent fix look invisible. Override per command, never globally. An expired Pro token fails silent, so alert on subscription expiry in Prometheus 30 days out. Livepatch caps around 6 months between reboots, so schedule quarterly maintenance windows. And need restart -RRA will happily sigh up your database mid-deploy. Use the blacklist. So that's the full patching stack. Unattended upgrades handling the security pocket. Need restart deciding what actually needs a bounce. Pro and Livepatch buying you kernel CVE coverage without reboots. ESM stretching your LTS to 10 years. And an SLA matrix that turns CVE severity into a clock. 6 skills and stage 03 hardening is shipped. UFW, SSH, fail to ban, sudo and PAM, app armor, and now auto patching. The fleet is secured. Next lesson, stage 04 operate kicks off. Restick backups, Prometheus and Grafana, Ansible, containers, release upgrades, and the capstone. Hardening is done. 6 lessons, 1 secured fleet. Firewall, SSH, intrusion response, privilege boundaries, mandatory access control, and now a patching pipeline that hits the 24-hour SLA. Stage 04 operate begins next with lesson 18. Restick backups to S3, building on the LVM snapshots from lesson 09. Wired into a system timer with retention and tested restores. Because a hardened server you can't restore isn't actually production ready. See you in lesson 18.